I still remember the weight of that moment. I was standing in the middle of our conference room. The lights low, the city glowing through the glass walls, and a fresh contract resting in my hands. The ink was still wet. My signature beside his. A deal that was supposed to secure our future together, but something about it felt heavier than paper. Almost like it carried a secret I hadn't seen yet. A quiet warning. Hiding right there between the lines, I stared at my partner's signature, bold and confident. He had signed it fast, almost too fast. No questions, no hesitation. At the time, I took it as trust. Or maybe excitement. But looking back now, it felt more like a man who thought he had everything under control. If only he knew, if only I knew. Because that simple contract, only a few pages long, was about to change everything between us. It would expose something he worked so hard to keep hidden. Something that would shake the foundation of the partnership we built from the ground up. As I held the document, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just routine business. Why had he insisted on signing it alone? Why did he rush the meeting? Why did he avoid eye contact the second the pen touched the paper? I didn't understand it then. I couldn't. All I saw was a deal meant to protect our company. A normal update. A simple agreement to safeguard our future. But a voice in the back of my mind kept whispering, "Why does this feel wrong? Why does he look relieved instead of proud?" That's when the thought hit me, quiet but sharp. Did he sign because he trusted me? Or because he thought I trusted him? I took a slow breath and looked around the room, as if the walls themselves were holding answers I couldn't see yet. The contract seemed to pulse in my hands, almost like it was telling me there was much more beneath the surface. I didn't know it yet. But the ink on that paper was about to unmask everything he tried to hide. And standing there, alone in that empty conference room, I had no idea just how far this deal would push me. How deeply it would cut. Or how completely it would expose the truth behind my partner's smile. Because this wasn't just a contract. It was the first crack in a secret he never expected me to find. When I look back now, it almost feels unreal how everything started. There was a time when my partner, Mark, wasn't a mystery to me. He was my friend. My teammate. Almost like the brother I never had. We met years ago, back when both of us were just trying to survive in the business world. Two young guys in the US, chasing a dream that felt bigger than our bank accounts and our sleep schedules combined. We were broke, tired, and honestly, a little desperate. But we had something most people didn't. We believed in the same vision. I can still picture those long nights in our small rented office, if you could even call it an office. It was really just a room with two shaky desks, a cheap coffee machine, and a window that barely opened. But to us, it felt like the first step toward something great. We worked until sunrise more times than I can count. Sharing ideas, arguing over designs, laughing at mistakes. And even when everything went wrong, we kept going, side by side. Back then, trust came easy. He shared personal stories. I shared mine. We talked about our families, our hopes, our fears. There were nights when all we had was each other's determination to keep us moving forward. Our bond grew into something that felt almost unbreakable. He called me brother more than once. And I meant it when I said I'd always have his back. Slowly, after years of pushing through setbacks, our dreams started to take shape. Clients began to notice us. Investors reached out. Our company, something we built from scratch, actually started gaining real traction. But somewhere in the middle of that success, something changed. It was small at first. A private phone call that ended the second I walked into the room. A meeting he insisted on taking alone. An odd pause when I asked about a new client he was handling. I brushed it off every time. I told myself he was stressed or tired, or just trying to lighten my workload. After all, this was Mark, my friend, my partner. The guy who stood beside me when no one else did that, so why would I question him? Why would I doubt someone I had trusted for years? I didn't realize it then. But those tiny cracks were the first signs that our dream, our shared dream, was slowly shifting into something else. Something he wasn't telling me. Something I wasn't ready to see. I didn't want to believe anything was wrong. But sometimes, the smallest things speak the loudest. And for me, those small things started showing up one by one. It began with an email. I wasn't copied on a message from a major client, someone I usually handled myself. At first, I told myself it was nothing. Maybe Mark just forgot. Maybe he was rushing. We were both busy, right? But then it happened again. And again. Emails forwarding deals, updates, plans. All sent only to him. Not me. I'd walk into the office and he'd slam his laptop shut as if he was hiding a surprise party gift or something. Except it didn't feel like a surprise meant for me. It felt like a door closing. Then there were the meetings. Sudden, unplanned trips out of the office. Calls he took only in the hallway, whispering just low enough that I couldn't catch any details. Every time I asked who he was meeting with, he gave the same answer. Just a quick follow-up. Nothing big, but it didn't feel like nothing. The real punch in the gut came when I checked one of our financial reports. A small transfer, nothing huge, but it didn't match anything on our books. When I asked him about it, he brushed it off with a smile I didn't quite recognize. Just a mistake, he said. A simple mix-up. But the smile didn't reach his eyes. And the next month? Another mix-up. Then another. I tried to convince myself I was overthinking everything. This was Mark, my partner. My friend. The man who helped me build this dream from nothing. So why would he hide anything from me? But trust. Trust can make you blind in the worst way. And as much as I wanted to stay calm, something inside me was changing. A quiet voice one I tried so hard to ignore kept whispering, "Pay attention. Something isn't right." I'd lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, replaying every strange moment. The hidden emails. The rushed meetings. The numbers that didn't add up. Each one felt like a tiny crack in the foundation of everything we had built. And even though I tried to patch it with excuses, the cracks only kept spreading. I kept telling myself I was imagining things. But my gut kept whispering otherwise. Little did I know, those whispers were just the beginning. The storm was coming. And I wasn't ready for what it would expose. The moment everything shifted. Started with one number. One small number that shouldn't have been there. I was reviewing our monthly statements. Something I usually did with a clear mind. But that day, something caught my eye. An amount moved out of our business account. Not a huge amount, but big enough to raise a question. At first, I thought it was a simple accounting adjustment. We'd had those before. But when I checked the notes attached to the transfer, there was nothing. No vendor, no invoice. No explanation. Just money quietly gone. I tried not to panic. Instead, I walked over to Mark's office and asked him about it. The second the words left my mouth, I saw something change in his face, just for a moment. A flicker of something he tried to hide. "Oh, that," he said, waving his hand like it was nothing. "Just a small payment. Don't worry about it." But I did worry. Because that wasn't an answer. It was a dismissal. So I pressed a little. "Can you show me the invoice? I just want to update our records." His smile disappeared. His tone tightened. "Why are you suddenly checking every detail? Don't you trust me?" That question hit harder than it should have. Because trust was the only reason I hadn't questioned him sooner. And now he was using it against me. The next week, it happened again. Another unexplained transfer. Another vague excuse. Another annoyed reaction when I tried to understand what was happening. The trust between us, something we had built for years, started to feel fragile. Like a rope stretched too tight. I didn't argue. I didn't accuse him. But inside, something began to shift. A cold, quiet awareness. So I did the only thing I could. I started documenting everything, every email, every financial report, every unanswered question, not because I wanted to fight him, but because I needed to protect everything we had built, including myself. That's when I realized something important. If I didn't take action now, whatever he was doing could destroy the company completely. So I made a decision. A calm, strategic one. I began drafting a new partnership contract. A document designed to update our roles, but also to protect me if things continued to slip in the wrong direction. I kept it quiet. He had no idea I was preparing it. No idea that I was finally listening to the warnings I had ignored for too long. He didn't know it yet. But that contract would become the moment everything changed. I didn't sleep the night before I wrote the new contract. I sat at my desk, staring at a blank document, knowing this wasn't just paperwork anymore. This was protection. This was clarity. This was the only way to finally uncover whatever Mark was hiding behind those closed doors and quiet transfers. I told myself I wasn't trying to trap him. I only wanted the truth. But deep down, I think part of me already knew what I was going to find. The key was a single clause. A harmless-looking line buried deep inside the agreement. It granted me full financial visibility, every account, every transaction, every file. It also gave me the right to audit the company at any time, without warning. Simple, reasonable, totally normal for business partners. But to someone hiding something, it was a spotlight. Once the contract was ready, I invited Mark into the conference room. I kept my voice steady, casual, as if this was something routine. Just an update, I said. Small adjustments to reflect how much we've grown. He didn't question it. Not even a little. He flipped through the pages so quickly, it made my stomach twist. He wasn't reading, just scanning, nodding, acting like he trusted me completely. For a moment, watching him, I felt a strange mix of sadness and anger. Sadness because I missed the guy he used to be. Anger because he thought I was still blind. Then he reached the last page. He picked up the pen slowly, confidently, and signed. No hesitation. No questions. No awareness of what he had just done. And then he smiled. A big, relaxed, almost proud smile. As if he believed he had everything under control. As if he thought he was still 3 steps ahead. He smiled as he signed it, not knowing he had just handed me the truth. That moment felt unreal, quiet, heavy, like a silent countdown had just started. Ticking toward the truth he never expected me to touch. When he left the room, the contract still warm from his signature, I felt something shift inside me. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't confused. I wasn't second-guessing myself. I wasn't afraid. I had the key. The access. The right to finally see everything he'd been hiding. He had no idea what he had just given me. But soon, he would. The morning after the contract was signed, I walked into the office with a strange mix of nerves and determination. For the first time, I had full access, actual access to everything in our system. No more blocked folders. No more restricted files. No more excuses. I opened my laptop, took a slow breath, and used the new audit permissions the contract granted me. At first, everything looked normal. The usual invoices. The usual reports. The same folders I'd seen 100 times. But then, I noticed a new directory. One I had never seen before. It wasn't labeled suspiciously, just a simple, harmless name buried at the bottom of the list. I clicked it. Inside were financial summaries. But not from our company. The numbers didn't match anything we handled. The clients didn't match either. It looked like a completely different business. My stomach dropped. I clicked deeper. More files, contracts, client lists, payment logs, all pointing to a separate company created quietly. registered under a name that wasn't his, but linked to his private email. A company offering the same services we offered. At the same time, he had been telling me we were too busy to take on new clients. And then came the moment that broke me. A list of clients we had pitched together, people who had seemed eager, people who had suddenly gone silent. I always thought they lost interest. But the documents showed something else. They didn't disappear. He took them. He moved them to his secret company, behind my back, draining the opportunities we built together. My chest tightened. My hands shook. I felt anger. Sharp and cold. But beneath that was something worse: heartbreak. The kind you only feel when someone you trusted more than family proves you wrong. I kept digging, each file hitting harder than the last. Emails he sent alone. Deals he closed without me. Payments routed through accounts I had never seen. Piece by piece, the truth came together. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't stress. This wasn't a simple mistake. It was a plan. A long, deliberate plan. And when I opened the final folder, one tucked so deep, he must have thought I would never find it. I froze. Inside was a document laying out his next steps. A timeline. A transfer plan. A full strategy for walking away with everything, while leaving me with nothing. My heart dropped as I whispered to myself. And that's when I saw it. His escape plan. I thought I had seen the worst of it. But the truth had layers, and each one cut deeper than the last. After finding the escape plan, I kept digging. I needed to understand how far he had gone, how long he had been preparing to leave me behind. What I found next left me sitting in silence for a long moment, unable to breathe. There were meeting notes. Not our meetings, his. Hidden in a folder marked with a code name, almost as if he thought labeling it something boring would keep it invisible. The notes showed he had been talking to investors for months. Private investors. Ones we used to pitch to together. Investors who had turned us down suddenly. Or so I thought. Now I could see why they weren't rejecting us. They were choosing him. Every line I read felt like another piece of the truth falling into place. He hadn't just planned to leave the company. He planned to take the one thing we worked on day and night, the product we built with sweat, stress, and sacrifice, and rebrand it as his own. Same design. Same concept. Same mission we mapped out on a whiteboard at 2 a.m. years ago. Only the name was changed. A new logo. A new story. A version that erased me completely. The worst part came when I found the legal documents. Draft agreements. Registration papers. A nearly finished plan to transfer our clients, dissolve our current contracts, and move everything into his new company. He wasn't planning to walk away. He was planning to take it all. The clients, the product, the future we dreamed of, and leave me standing in the rubble. When the full weight of it hit me, I felt something inside me crack. This wasn't just business. This wasn't a disagreement or a misunderstanding. This was betrayal, cold, calculated, polished like a presentation he'd practiced 100 times. And the painful truth washed over me. This wasn't just betrayal, it was a plan to erase me. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen, feeling a mix of sadness, shock, and a rising determination I hadn't felt before. He almost succeeded. If I hadn't created that contract, if he hadn't signed it so confidently, I would have discovered everything far too late. But now I knew his plan. Every detail, every move. And if he thought I was going to stay silent while he walked out with everything we built, he was about to learn just how wrong he was. The moment I understood the full scope of his plan, something inside me shifted. The fear, the confusion, the heartbreak, all of it slowly settled into something clearer. A calm, steady determination. I wasn't going to confront him with anger. I wasn't going to shout or argue. That's what he would expect: chaos, panic. Something he could twist into an excuse. No. If he wanted to play this quietly, I would beat him at his own game. The first thing I did was call a lawyer I trusted, someone far removed from our usual business circle. I didn't say much on the call. I didn't need to. I just said, I need advice. Private advice. We met the next morning in a small office across town. I laid everything out. The hidden company. The client transfers. The secret investor meetings. The documents showing his plan to move everything away from me. The lawyer listened with a serious expression, nodding slowly. When I finally showed him the contract, the one with the audit clause, he leaned back in his chair and said words that gave me my first feeling of hope. You're protected. And you can prove everything. From that moment on, I followed every step with precision. Quiet, strategic, controlled. Used the contract's clause to access every file legally. Documenting each piece of evidence. Screenshots, financial logs, email trails, meeting timelines. Everything was saved, backed up and organized, clean, clear, undeniable. But I knew something else too. If he even sensed what I knew, everything would collapse. He would run. He would hide the rest. He would find a new angle to twist. So I stayed calm around him. I smiled. I nodded. I pretended nothing was wrong. Every time he walked by my office, acting confident, acting busy, acting loyal, I kept my expression steady. Inside, though, I was building the final moment, piece by piece. My plan was simple, but powerful. A board meeting. Not a dramatic showdown, but a controlled presentation with every fact laid out in order. All the evidence displayed at once, in front of everyone who mattered. He would walk into that room, thinking it was just another update. He would sit across from me, smiling like he still held every advantage. And then, the truth would unfold. Calm, clear, unstoppable. This wasn't about revenge driven by anger. This was justice built on facts he never expected me to see. And when the day came, I was ready. More ready than he could ever imagine. The morning of the board meeting, the air in the conference room felt heavier than usual. Not loud. Not chaotic. Just heavy, like the room itself knew something big was about to break. I sat at the head of the long oak table, my files neatly organized in front of me. The board members filtered in, chatting quietly, unaware of what they were about to witness. And then, Mark walked in. He looked relaxed, confident, almost cheerful, like he thought this meeting would be another routine update he could breeze through. He took a seat across from me and gave me a smile I'd seen 1,000 times. But this time, it felt different. Hollow. I didn't smile back. As soon as the room settled, I began. Before we start today's agenda, I said, keeping my voice calm, steady. There are some important findings I need to share with everyone. I clicked the remote. The first slide lit up the screen: financial discrepancies. Then client logs. Then hidden transfers. At first, Mark looked confused. Then tense. Then still. He cleared his throat. This looks like a mistake, he said, forcing a smile. We can talk about this later, I cut him off gently. There's more. Slide after slide, the evidence built. The side company. The client siphoning. The investor meetings. The legal documents mapping out his escape plan. Every piece was organized. Time-stamped, undeniable. I watched the board members shift in their seats, their expressions darkening as the truth unfolded. Some whispered to each other. Others stared straight at him, disappointment clear on their faces. Mark's confidence collapsed in real time. His breathing grew shallow. His hands trembled. He kept looking at me like he was waiting for me to say I was wrong, that this was some misunderstanding. But I stayed silent. Then came the final slide. The contract. The clause he ignored. The one that gave me full access to every piece of evidence now sitting in front of the entire board. This, I said, pointing to his signature. Gave me the right to see everything. The room fell completely silent. One board member turned to Mark. "Is this true?" He opened his mouth, but no words came out. He looked utterly speechless, like the ground had disappeared beneath him. And in that moment, I saw it hit him. The realization. The final blow. He had destroyed himself. The second he signed that contract without reading it. By the time the board voted him out of his position, the room felt different. Lighter. Clearer. The truth had finally come out. And nothing, absolutely nothing, could save him now. When the board meeting ended, the room emptied fast. No one wanted to look at Mark. No one wanted to speak to him. The truth had spread through the company like a quiet storm. And by the time the last person stepped out, everything he had built in secret was already starting to crumble. I stayed seated for a moment, letting the silence settle. It felt unreal watching the man who once called me brother sit across from me, staring at the table like it held the answer to getting his life back. But the fallout had already begun. Within hours, the investors he'd been secretly meeting reached out angry, refusing to be part of anything tied to deception. Some of them even apologized to me for believing his version of our story. His new company, the one he tried to build behind my back, shut down almost overnight. Then came the legal hit. Because of the contract he signed, every move he made in the shadows was documented, verified, and fully tied to our business. He lost ownership of the side company. He lost every client he tried to pull away. He lost every advantage he thought he had so cleverly built. And finally, he lost his position in our company. When the board formally removed him, he didn't argue. He didn't fight. He just nodded, like he finally understood the weight of what he had done. Like he realized he hadn't just betrayed a partner, he had destroyed the future we built together. I stepped into the CEO role that same week. Not because I wanted revenge. Not because I wanted to stand above him. But because someone needed to steady the company. Someone needed to rebuild what he almost broke, but taking control didn't feel like triumph. That night, long after everyone left, I walked through the office slowly. The space felt different, quiet, peaceful, but also heavy with memories. Each desk, each wall, each late-night coffee stain reminded me of a time when we were a team, when we believed in the same dream. And now, he was gone from it all. Removed, exposed, cut out of the very thing he tried to take for himself. I stood by the window, looking out at the city lights, and felt something I didn't expect: sadness. Not for what he lost, but for who he chose to become. It was a strange mixed victory wrapped in heartbreak. Because yes, justice had finally landed. But I also had to accept that someone who once felt like family had been the one to break the bond. And nothing about that felt simple. Rebuilding the company after everything that happened didn't start with big moves. It started with small, steady steps, quiet decisions, careful choices, and a promise to myself that I would never let the shadows of someone else's betrayal define the future we had fought so hard for. The first thing I did was restructure the team. Not by tearing everything down, but by strengthening what mattered: trust. I brought in people who believed in the mission, people who valued honesty more than shortcuts. Some were new faces. Some were longtime employees who finally felt safe enough to speak up about what had felt off for months. Little by little, the energy in the office changed. The tension faded. The whispering stopped. People smiled again, not because they were told to, but because they could finally breathe. Next came the clients. The ones Mark had tried to quietly move to his hidden company. I reached out to them one by one, not with anger, but with clarity. I explained what happened, apologized for any confusion, and assured them the company was under stable, honest leadership again. To my surprise, most of them returned. They told me they always felt something strange about the sudden shift. They trusted our original vision, not the rushed version he tried to create behind the scenes. With every client we reclaimed, I felt a little more of the damage being undone. But rebuilding wasn't just about the business. It was about healing too. There were moments when I sat alone in my office, thinking about how easily trust can break, and how deeply betrayal cuts when it comes from someone who once stood beside you. I realized that strength doesn't always come from fighting back loudly. Sometimes it comes from choosing to rebuild quietly, piece by piece, with integrity leading the way. As the months passed, the company didn't just recover, it grew. New partnerships, better systems, a healthier team, a stronger foundation than anything we had before. Looking back, I understood something important. The truth may hurt when it rises, but it also clears the path ahead. His betrayal didn't end the dream. It forced me to rebuild it honestly. And in a strange way, that made it stronger than ever. Rebuilding without him wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of the one I should have been writing all along. When everything finally settled, and the noise of the fallout faded, I found myself looking back at the journey that led me here. The late nights, the moments of doubt, the heartbreak of realizing someone I trusted had been working against me, and the quiet strength it took to rise above it all. It made me realize something powerful. Trust should be earned, not assumed. For years, I believed loyalty was automatic, that if I gave it, it would come back to me just as honestly. But the truth is more complicated. People change, motives shift, and sometimes the person standing beside you may not be walking in the same direction anymore. What saved me wasn't anger. It wasn't confrontation. It wasn't loud revenge. It was something much simpler. A detail. A single clause in a contract he barely bothered to read. That tiny line, so small it could have been overlooked, became the key that protected everything I cared about. It taught me that the smallest details can guard you from the biggest betrayals. And that real strength doesn't always come from dramatic moves. Sometimes it comes from quiet, careful steps taken at the right moment. As I rebuilt the company, as I regained the trust of my team, and as I watched the business grow stronger than it ever had before, I learned another lesson. Sometimes the quietest moves lead to the strongest justice. I didn't have to raise my voice. I didn't have to fight dirty. I didn't have to sink to his level. All I had to do was reveal the truth, calmly, openly. And the truth did what anger never could. It exposed the scheme. It protected the company. It restored what mattered. Looking back now, I don't feel the same pain I once did. I feel clarity. I feel closure. And I feel grateful, not for what he did, but for what I learned through it. Because in the end, the contract wasn't just a document. It was a reminder to stay aware, a reminder to trust carefully, and a reminder that doing things the right way, even when it's hard, can bring the justice you deserve. He never expected one simple contract to unmask his scheme. But sometimes, doing things the right way is the strongest revenge. If this story hit you, if the betrayal, the truth, and the quiet revenge stayed with you, then don't leave just yet. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another story where justice finds its voice. Thanks for watching, and remember, even the smallest truth can change everything.